El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Those are important resources to remember because, well, generally, it's one of the better ways you can comment throughout the duration of the program every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. as we do. But Fridays are ever so slightly different, and one of the, well, my favorite days of the week anyway, not just because it's coming up on the weekend, because of what we do here on the program, as we are just in sight of that end of the work week, beginning of that time when we're all getting out there and hopefully doing more, if you can, if you choose to. I'll be doing some things I haven't done in a while here this weekend, including some other events, but specifically for Fridays, we do it as a free-for-all Friday, meaning that we are taking all of your comments, calls, comments, questions, commentary, all of it, as much as we can cram into 2 hours of the show. That's what we are focused on here today on the program. So by no means should you take this as there is not a lot to talk about. If anything, there is more than we can even cram into the rest of the programs, but this is that pressure relief valve for the week when we will take on any of those subjects, opening it up even beyond the ever so slightly tested lately limits of what affects us here in the borderline, because there's a whole lot more. And even if you want to still talk about that, you're more than welcome to, but we let it all hang out on these days. Just remember, if you're calling in, because those phone lines are also open throughout both hours of the program, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. That's what you dial, and you can get on the line. Just remember to keep it clean over there, otherwise we'll have to dump you. Already some people gathering on there as well, chiming in and leaving those reacts over on the social media, including Flaco Jimenez and Ida Beza Gardner. Do appreciate that, as well. I get excited for a day like today. It's been a busy one, and I am sure that you all are looking forward to the weekend. Well, let's kick it off right by getting into those issues. Just a couple of things top of mind just to set it up here. I know there's been a lot of discussion on what has been going on, immigration response around the country here, but more specifically, local numbers coming out, including that Border Patrol in El Paso and the El Paso sector overall conducting over 200,000 migrant encounters as of this year, as well as 404 rescues this year. So some of those numbers definitely drawing a lot of interest, as well as more issues going on and other developments, including more bond request meetings being held on the UMC bond. So just because we open it up at the end of the week doesn't mean we've run out of things to talk about happening here locally. If anything, it means that we probably should be doing more, but I know we got a lot to discuss here. So let's get to those phone lines again. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Let's go ahead and get that first call on the line here right now. We do have Ben on the east side with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. Well, more Americans are heading for the food banks. It seems like the Democrats are touting their climate and health care bill. And I'm sitting here looking at what the lead said about this bill yesterday. And I want to ask you, what do you think is going to help the average American? $369 billion to energy, climate change programs.
Mm-hmm.
How does that help the average American? Slashes the U.S. carbon emissions by 40% by 2030. How is that going to help the average American right now when people are flooding all over the country to food banks because of the economy? And the last thing they have here is tax credits for electric vehicles. I don't think most of the average Americans can afford to buy an electric vehicle right now. And then they say it's going to help these senior citizens because of health care. That is their big climate and health care bill. this is what they're focusing on, and the rest, as the rest of the country, can't get to work, can't feed their children. Does this make sense to you?
I mean, it's simple answer, no. I mean, there's a reason that I just need to have a sign made. I've finally decided that it's the economy, stupid, as anytime you're wondering about what are voters interested in, what are people who are going to actually drive them out to the polls, what are they going to be most concerned about when making those electoral decisions, because the simple answer to all of those is it's the economy, stupid. Because anytime we are talking about these very myriad issues, and I'm not even saying that other things aren't important, but whenever you start getting beyond the kind of like base level stuff, the pain points that we have discussed, and people being affected right where they live. Sure, there are plenty of other issues. Some of these other ones may even reach that level for some people, but for most people, the majority of people who are, again, going to be probably considering how they may or may not be voting, and just ever so since ticked off people happen to be more motivated, shall we say, to go out and do that, not focusing on that first, foremost, and almost always, if I was in charge of any political campaign, which I have no particular interest in doing, everything that I put out, including even on this one, would be the economy, climate change and healthcare bill, because that would be the first part of it. So in short, in answer to your question, are people going to be like necessarily enthused about this and saying, oh, that fixes everything? In short, no.
Yes, and also, there's a period in time, long time ago, where somebody said, "Let them eat cake." And I believe that is what is happening. The Democrats, they're all in a tither about all the stuff that they're crying about, the January 6th thing. Ukraine, you're trying to make sure the Ukrainian people are going to be destroyed because they're being, their infrastructure is being destroyed. All this thing, all we're doing is giving them fuel for the fire to light their system up and make it where their people are suffering just as much as just about anybody else. And what are we doing? What is our government focusing on? They're focusing on this garbage.
I mean, again, I'm not even surprised that it's continuing to move forward and be focused on in its own right. I mean, if anything, the federal government can and should be able to focus on many things at one point in time, but given how much we talk about things like, optics, what does it seem like is most important to you? What is actually moving through? Whenever it's not, I mean, sure, do other things at the same time, but if you're not pushing primarily and forcefully for those very basic affecting issues, again, the economy, what is going on? I mean, sure, healthcare is important there. I think that was maybe kind of the idea I was talking about before, so it didn't just sound like just one thing. It's healthcare is in there too. Don't you care about healthcare? I can hear the line being spoken back to as someone would then put to one of these sponsors or authors of the bill saying that no, this is important. Don't you think that's important? Like, sure, but let's get our priorities straight and work on. I mean, if you're really concerned about staying in office, if every other word out of your mouth isn't a phrase that relates to fixing the economy, you're probably not going to, I wouldn't get too comfortable in that chair is what I'm saying.
All the things that are going to be happening to Europe, they're facing an energy crisis over there. They have food problems because of lack of fertilizer, things of that sort. And the United States has plenty ability to supply and become that beacon on the hill again, where people, look to the United States for leadership. But no, we're not going to do that. We're going to cry about recession. The definition of recession, that is one of the other big things that the Democrats think, if you can just convince everybody that we're not in a recession, then everything's going to be hunky-dory.
Yeah.
And by the way, one more real quick thing. Let's go Brandon.
I've actually some interesting story about that. Brandon, the actual NASCAR driver, read the other day, apparently he's having to pull out of some of these upcoming races due to sponsorship issues. Just that brings that to mind here. But to your core issue, what you're discussing there, yeah, the idea of I'm not even necessarily opposed to setting some trajectories for, better, more efficient use of resources, renewables. Sure, there's some potential there that it can be developed over many years, but anything that is saying, and by the way, we're going to be doing this all right now. I mean, not that it wasn't political in nature already, but this is political to the point of ignoring reality and what the possibilities are. Like, heck, even when it comes to the idea about cooking, I've been looking at stoves lately, so it's on the brain for me. So pardon that for my overwhelming my thinking, but the idea of induction cooktops, not having to use, gas or even the different more traditional electric tops makes a lot of sense and will probably be very much viable in the future. But right now they are horrifically expensive for anything you actually want to use, or just unreliable for those that are in the affordable range. And so not really long-term viable. So yes, maybe some long-term investment would work in that way if that's really what the focus is, on reducing fossil fuels emissions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But demanding it right now as everyone's got to switch, like some states are kind of doing, is going to cause more than a few issues. So by sacrificing the impact on reality for the perceived, I guess, ideological goal with it, not going to work out. And hopefully people are going to recognize that those voting in the ways that may not be suiting of their interests, they should change while they're voting to better suit their interests, is just what I'm going to say about that.
Well, hopefully we won't slip into the same trap that Sri Lanka went into. And, and we'll be able to pull ourselves out of this before they destroy the United States, which is what the World Economic Forum had, from the very beginning said, that in order to make this plan work, we have to destroy the United States.
Yeah,
because they have too much and the rest of the world has too little.
Yeah, definitely not going to find myself in favor of any of those kind of plans. And yeah, I think a lot of people, this will be a very interesting election that I'm going to continue to watch. But even before that point, I think a lot of people are going to be making their displeasure known. I mean, protest is not something that is the right of any particular party or ideology. And I think more people doing that would definitely send some kind of messages. Well, I think this will be very interesting towards the end of the year, towards November. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. Stay well, stay safe, and God bless.
You as well. Do again. Appreciate it there. All right, that's going to take us through that first break of the hour here right now, already delving into a lot of those very core issues, and we'll keep doing that. Again, Free for All Friday is what we call What We Do Today here on the end of the work week, getting into all of these issues, taking on all of your questions and comments as much as we can cram into 2 hours of the program here, as we have Edgar Ortiz, RJ, Kathy Codry, Flaco Jimenez, John Brazelton, and more tuning in, chiming in, dropping those likes and reacts. In additional, Robbie Flores, Matt Olson, Monica Cervantes, Flaco Jimenez, and Ida Beza Gardner. We'll get to more of those comments and what's coming in there, as well as those phone calls. Again, that number to dial if you want to get on the line is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Police and fire on scene for a crash. Injury sustained reported on Dyer northbound to Gateway South. Take an alternate route. You could use northbound 54 Patriot Freeway. Watch for a fire crew stage for a medical emergency Mesa Street at Kirby. And also a medical reported on Mesa Street at Remcon Circle. There you could use Red Road or Sunland Park as an alternate route to avoid delays. That's a look at your latest El Paso traffic.
Find yourself going through life ignoring the totals on your receipts? Oh, I can't bring myself to look. We've got your shot at $1,000 with Inflation Vacation. Listen every hour from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win $1,000.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays on News Talk 690 a.m.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories podcast.
For years, the Manhattan Project, the project to build the first atomic bomb, remained classified. But one man in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, documented the entire thing with his camera. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them. So you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. That's your regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the leading cancer killer, but can be prevented with regular screenings starting at age 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
For more than 20 years, the Window Depot has provided the best price and the biggest inventory on in-stock vinyl windows. And now the Window Depot is more than a window store, offering homeowners and contractors a one-stop warehouse full of interior and exterior doors, granite and quartz countertops, in-stock cabinetry, and flooring and tile to finish your project. Their team of professionals will help with everything from free kitchen design to custom orders from leading manufacturers like Milgard and Geldwin. Order online or find a location near you at thewindowdepot.com.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, beat the largest timeshare company in federal court and has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-738-9900. That's 800-738-9900.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, which we have a lot of comments coming through already. If ever there was a day it was going to happen, it would be Friday, of course, because what we do, if you're unfamiliar, I'm sure a lot of people tuning in are, but just in case, Free for All Friday is what we call it when we're taking your comments and calls throughout both hours of the show, as much as we cram in, because we always end up not having quite enough time. Isn't that just how life goes these days? But we do the best we can with as much time as we are given, which is all anyone can do. And a lot of comments coming in here already, including Maria Coleman making a pointed statement about City Council deems it necessary to increase my property taxes for UMC. Slight caveat there. It is county commissioners, more or less, but also they're their own taxing entity. It gets complicated, I know, but she also goes on to say an added tax for the next 10 years, simultaneously taxing me so the city manager can obtain his health care in Dallas. The healthcare system is to be dramatically improved. Why does he need to leave the area to procure treatment? He extended his contract for 9 years. So you're definitely right about City Council on the second half of that. UMC technically sets its own tax rate to request them anyway, then that's approved by county commissioners. So that's why when we often talk about local taxation, governance, etc., we go with those two aspects of it, City Council and county commissioners, because they either set or have a very strong say in setting a lot of your taxing rates. So that's why we talk about those. But don't get me wrong, your general points certainly have a level to them here. John Brazelton is saying, let's just say that he has City Council by the short ones, as though I'm going to choose to say that right now, and a lot more other conversation, including going on about construction of border barriers, among others. Barbara Carrasco, Kathy Codry, John Brazelton, Maria Calma, Edgar Ortiz, RG, Kathy Codry, I already said that already, Flaco Jimenez, and more tuning and chiming in over on the social media. You're, of course, welcome to do that as well. But, of course, that phone line, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of calls coming in. They're full up at the moment, so let's get back on those. Right now, we do have Kevin on the east side with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. I have an appeal for the listeners to your program who are not calling in.
Mm-hmm.
And because they agree or disagree, they should call in and let us know what their thoughts are, because I'm not going to learn anything from somebody who always echoes what I'm thinking. I want to hear what other people say.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to agree with them or disagree with them, whatever the case may be. But we have the usual callers who are good. I don't want to put them down. I'm saying they're interesting, and we should listen to them. But there are many, many, many more. The silent majority of listeners out there, they have plenty of things to say. We have a wealth of experience in this city, in this county, that needs to be tapped. Because, for example, Estefania Seifert is very good at bringing local issues to the fore and talking about things that we can solve here. And I know this is Friday and this is open to all kinds of issues, but one thing I would like to highlight is the school safety issue. Now, we have many teachers, administrators, parents, wealth of experience, as I say, with dealing with these problems, and we need to tap into that. And whether a person agrees or disagrees with any or most of the ideas presented, we owe it to ourselves to listen, to think, to evaluate, and then, we can possibly learn something new or different. And your show in particular is great because it is not national, and there is a better opportunity, a much better opportunity to call in to your show and get heard, be able to speak one's mind than there is on any of these national shows. And I really appreciate it. We used to have other shows and other people. John Laird comes to mind, Greg Freimuth, the late Paul Strelson, etc. They're gone now. And we have only one, and we need to take advantage of your program, Andrew, and have all sides listen to, and perhaps we can come to a consensus about what a proper solution is to the various problems we have in this area. And that's about all I have, and I want to thank you for your wonderful show and for your wonderful listeners, especially the people that call in. We need more people calling in.
I will fully agree with you on those last 2 points. Absolutely. I appreciate those that do, but if any, sometimes I get the sense that maybe there's this idea that there's this club or special list or anything like that of people who call in. I think the major difference in those that do or those, because sometimes we have people that'll call in a segment, we end up hitting to break, I notice the line drops off, and we're always left wondering what's happened there. So I think a little bit of tenacity is about the only thing that's really needed for people to call it. It's one of the reasons we mentioned the phone line as well as the social media, because the social media, you can always drop your comment over there, and we have some people pop in there. But also, just if you want to get on the phone line, if that's your preferred way, it might take a little bit, because we, particularly on a day like today, we do have a lot of people calling in. And so if you feel at all frustrated, you can always email me, Andrew Polk at iHeartMedia.com. I've had a few people do that. They did ask not to be mentioned directly, so I won't say what they told me, because you can also do that. I don't necessarily respond to all of them because I get a lot of email, but I always look at them to know what is being said and what is being put forth. So there's a lot of ways to even just get at me, but if you really want to be a part of the forum, part of the way that we do the presentation here, it is available. And just as another slight hint, whenever someone hangs up is another good time to try to do that call again. But I appreciate your point. Absolutely.
Thank you, Andrew. Have a good day.
No, you too as well. Have a great weekend there. I mean, there's more than we can ever really get to, even within this show, or all the callers that might really want to make a point here. So I'm just saying, try it. You might be surprised at what comes out of it. So trying to get to at least one more call before we hit that next break on that subject here. We do have Joe on the west side here with us right now. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Hey, I just wanted to inform the Democrats that have been calling in and calling out Barbara for stating the facts about the Democratic screw-ups and how they are hurting the country. Barbara is a classy and smart lady and a business owner, and is probably one of the most informative callers on your show. Okay, now what I wanted to get into was further, the Democrats tend to screw up everything they touch and manage to turn it into a disaster. And that's, for example, Afghanistan. Don't forget Afghanistan, people. And the debacle caused by pulling out our soldiers without a plan. And not only that, look at inflation, Ukraine, the border, price of gas and oil, rising crime, police, military, recruiting down, etc., etc., etc. Now, President Trump predicted, and I'm going to say it in Spanish, predicted un desmadre if Biden was elected president. We would not be having all these problems if the Democrats had not rigged the presidential campaign. People would not be dying in Afghanistan, Ukraine, or migrating to this country. And Trump cautioned the world about Biden. Trump was a good leader and manager because he had foresight and business experience. And I've mentioned this before on your talk show, and I'm going to get into it again. And for some reason, the Democrats like to trade our technology and secrets to adversarial governments for personal and political favors. And I gave some examples. And one of the examples that I gave was Clinton gave the Chinese rocket and satellite secrets. They are now using these against us. And the Russians are currently negotiating with Iran for the military purchase of very sophisticated drones that the Iranians have. And they want to use it against the Ukrainians. The reason the Iranians have this high-tech drones is that President Obama gave them, the Iranians, the prototypes and the technology and the money to build more. He did this because he wanted to get a nuclear deal with them. And now we don't know all that the Biden crime family has committed. And Trump was going to expose all of this shenanigans. So the Democrats had to rig the election. They could not have a Trump in office. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the point in the call there. I guess, I mean, there's a lot of the hindsight 50-50ing what could have happened there with a second term of the Trump administration. But looking at it now, I know that there's a lot of polling been going on specifically around the potentials of it. But let's just say this. I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced whether or not Putin would have done what he had done in Ukraine and the invasion of it there, because that guy's as inscrutable as ever in trying to forecast his potential actions, even with the second term of a Trump administration happening in there, would have been as wild card as anyone would be. I feel like my odds of predicting that would have been about as good as winning the lottery tonight here, which, yes, if that were to happen, I would still be on air on Monday. I might just be a little bit more glib than usual. In any case, I mean, seriously, the situation that we're looking at in this administration, I mean, there's a lot of dissatisfaction, and that's not even it is a political statement, but not necessarily a controversial one, and not directly backed up by polling anyway, because it definitely is. And the levels that we're looking at, I haven't looked at it as of today, but hovering in those mid to upper 30% approval ratings, there's clearly some issues and concerns, and I think it also goes a lot back to it's the economy, stupid, because honestly, I mean, as much as I've been joking about this being the warmed over third term, or at least warmed over third term policies being in place from the Obama administration, the similarities are a little bit uncanny sometimes, given that previously there were some big bills that came through that were very focused on some very, base or core party issues that sure, there's some argument to be made that they have a level of import, but the lack of focus on things such as the economy, basic human factors that people encounter, led to them taking a shellacking in the midterms. And okay, we're not quite at that point yet, of course, because we haven't hit those midterms, but we're on the cusp of them. And I know I'm already hearing some more advertising going on our air when it comes to some of these candidates already continuing that stumping. So, I mean, not that there was ever a question whether we're in that campaign season or not, but we definitely all, and John Browston offering to be my financial advisor, everyone, I think, might specifically. Again, I'm not going to say if I won the lottery or not, but there might be signs. Might have a better microphone, among other things, and a new studio, and maybe a flying blimp with my name on it. There are plans in place. Don't worry. In any case, the point is that we're looking at some very, again, eerily similar to the first term of the Obama administration, and the way that there were a lot of focuses on things, some big national packages put through, and then because it didn't focus on the economy, potential shellackings here. So appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there. We're due for that next break here already, and we're coming out of this break. We'll get to more of those calls on the line as well. So if you're on the line, stay there. If you want to call in, again, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso, airing here live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Free for All Friday is what we are doing. We get into all the comments, calls, everything we can cram into a couple hours, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. El Paso's District Attorney's Office is teaming up with Vitalant for a blood drive to honor the August 3rd mass shooting victims. DA Ivan Rosales and County Commissioner Carl Robinson are hosting the blood drive together, and they're asking El Pasoans to help out with a blood donation at a time when local blood banks are struggling to keep up with demand. The blood drive is happening next Monday and Tuesday on the 3rd floor of the El Paso County Courthouse from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. each day. And millions of dollars are heading to El Paso International Airport to update its runways and taxiways. The city announced Thursday the airport is getting a $13 million grant from the Federal Aviation Administration to help pay for the work. The airport is also getting $5 million from President Biden's infrastructure plan to spruce up the lighting and seating areas in the airport terminal. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Police and fire on scene for a crash. Injury sustained reported on Dyer northbound to Gateway South. Take an alternate route you could use northbound 54 Patriot Freeway. Watch for a fire crew stage for a medical emergency Mesa Street at Kirby. And also a medical reported on Mesa Street at Remcon Circle. There you could use Red Road or Sunland Park as an alternate route to avoid delays. That's a look at your latest El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. The weekend is finally here, and it looks like we may get a tiny little break. What that basically means is we've got a slight decrease in our rain chances, but on the flip side, that brings us a slight increase in our temperatures, and we could see the return of near triple-digit heat. But rain chances continue every day still and will continue into next week. Log on to kfoxtv.com for the latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Strawberry Frosty. With the Strawberry Frosty, time to enjoy yourself is built in. They're so rich and creamy, they're built for you to slow down, relax, and just take it all in. So when it's time for Frosty time, and Strawberry Frosty time is for a limited time, choose wisely. Choose Wendy's. Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We make car buying fun, fast, and easy, and our goal is to ensure everyone gets the lowest price possible with exceptional trade-in values.
At Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, no one pays over MSRP on every new car, truck, and SUV in stock. Plus, save big on every certified pre-owned vehicle. For a limited time, get 0% APR for 60 months on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third-row seating. Get up to $8,000 off select new Ram trucks or super low 2.9% APR for 72 months. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make This the Summer event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $1,667 and 2.9% APR is $1,515 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined. Excludes Hellcat, SRT, and TRX models.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso. Weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And let's talk El Paso.
For years, the Manhattan Project, the project to build the first atomic bomb, remained classified. But one man in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, documented the entire thing with his camera. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories podcast.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the many social media pages we're up on these days. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, and Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. There's actually a few more than that we're up on or shared on over on these days. So anywhere you find us is a good place to be, particularly if you can comment on it like we have on the social media, or if you want to give us a call. That open, as we do here on Fridays, focused on all of the subjects you wanted to bring up, discuss here. Free for All Fridays is what we called it. So, some very interesting comparisons being made here at Louis Bonato said the founding fathers revolted over less than a 10% tax. We're at over 50%. Now what? I'm not quite sure you're getting the 50% from, but obviously taxes are, I can't remember the last time I paid less than a 10% tax, except for like on buying stuff, but everything else, yeah, absolutely. Income, property, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, also there's that whole taxation without representation thing, even though there might be some finer debate that's being made there. One of the problems, I think, with D.C. ever becoming a state potentially is they'll have to completely change their license plates. I know, not the hugest issue, but it's something that keeps me up at night anyway. So we talk about the many things here. Oh, combined, he's clarifying there. Okay, there again, argument to be made here, but also some Monica Ravanta saying maybe a lot of background noise there, though that might be on the end there. So if it is, let us know. Otherwise, a lot more comments and commentary, such as Ian Grimm and more. And okay, Edgar Ortiz, apparently hit a chord there. Edgar Ortiz saying we are double and triple taxed on the vast majority of our income. Again, a lot of debate and commentary to be made on that, and we'll keep getting into it here. Don't even necessarily disagree, but definitely a lot to get into. So let's get back to those phone lines now. Again, people wanting to call in that way can do so by dialing 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. You have Al in the Northeast on the line with us here right now. Al, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you once again, Andrew. I want to first say that I agree with your last two callers. I think one gentleman's name was Kevin, and I didn't catch the other one, but I agree with much of what they say. But then on the other hand, we get callers, these Politburo callers who sound like broken records of stupidity. And, not to pick on him, I'm sure he's a fine human being, but Raul, come on. Let's settle this paradigm of hate, Trump, and get it settled. I'm willing to agree with you in the fact that let's blame everything on Trump. The Spanish Inquisition, the Black Flag, the fall of the Roman Empire, Nazism. All of the world's ills. Let's go ahead and blame it on Trump. Get it over with, Raul, and let's move on, like Kevin said. We need to talk about things that are going to improve this country, and one of them will be the re-election of Donald Trump, because if you A-B, it doesn't take more than a modicum of common sense to look at what's happening now compared to what state the nation was in. Here's another challenge for those comrades out there and those left-wingers who are drunk on the Kool-Aid of misinformation, propaganda, and out-and-out lies. What can you name that this administration, and let's face it, Biden's not making any decisions. He can't even find his own toothbrush and pajamas. So there's people behind him like Pelosi and that ilk that are making all the decisions. But they have not made a single decision that has benefited this country, whereas Trump had the country in better shape than it was before or post-World War II, when in the late 40s and 50s when this country had a pretty good era. I challenge them to name one thing that Trump failed at and one thing that this current administration successfully has done.
I mean, the way I don't, and someone calling as it happens before for a
Andrew,
pay-per-view.
the policies that are made on a national level have a trickle-down effect.
Oh, sure.
This town is basically run by liberals, and their solution to problems is spend more money, tax us more, and that's the opposite of what to do. Even John F. Kennedy said, if we reduce taxes, and Reagan was a big proponent of this, you reduce taxes and the whole economy benefits. They're doing the exact opposite things that will improve the economy right now. That's why we're in such a big hurt.
I mean, the idea of when you come down to the core of it, on the idea of, since we're on a taxation kick here, which I did not expect today, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised. The idea of, yes, the government can possibly do wonderful things with the money, something that necessarily individuals can't do when we're talking about things like national defense, space development, even though that one has come in a little bit more contravention lately. But whenever it comes to the idea that, and we are going to give it back to you, or we're going to help you out in certain ways, tax credits, those kind of things, I end up being, I will take a dubious eye to it. I will fully agree, because the idea of saying, well, we've taken the money and now we're giving it back to you, isn't that so wonderful? It just never quite sat right with me, even though I was growing up, because after I understood what the heck taxes were, thinking, yeah, this is a little bit bass backwards.
That's what the mafia does with protection money. It's the same thing. I mean, come on, let free enterprise and the capitalistic system work. I mean, Trump understood that. He was a master at it, and that's why we had the lowest unemployment in all ethnic groups during his administration. And you know, if we would have gone to his second administration, if it had been corrupted and stolen, we would see even greater improvements in this country. And I'm trying to generalize here and not get into specifics, because as Kevin said, we have people like Barbara who are doing the research and come in with the details. But just in general, compare and contrast the last administration and how America was doing with what it's done in the last 18 months.
And I think a lot of people will essentially be doing that because, I mean, as much as we try to delve into the issues, get to the policies, let's be honest, there is a large part of the general public, maybe not the totally voting public, because unfortunately these groups do not completely overlap. Well, when we're talking about citizens anyway, but even within that group, it doesn't totally overlap. Point is, a lot of people will very much come at what have you done for me lately? And even if it's not a total, and therefore the conclusion is the last guy was better, but even if it's just things aren't going great right now, why should we keep giving you the reins? That'll be very much, I think, the question top of mind whenever it comes to that, the national legislature, elected officials, the representatives and senators who are going to be coming up on the ballot this coming November. And again, a trajectory can be pretty well read. The tea leaves are pretty clear on that, even if there have been a few more hinge issues thrown in there, a wrench or two, maybe, whether or not that can totally gum up the works. Working on some interviews for you on that because, well, it's important and it has a potential, though whether it'll actually overcome the very simple logic of it's the economy, stupid, I do remain a little bit dubious about.
Well, okay, I'll just wrap it up and give somebody else a chance to speak here. I want all my fellow Americans out there to stay safe, and hopefully we can be happy and be prosperous if there's a landslide victory next November for people who really run this country, the working. Okay, Andrew, thank you.
Thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. You have a great weekend. All right, tell you what, I think we're going to go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming back after this break, we'll get to more of those calls on the line. Again, open throughout both hours of the program here, even as we're coming up on the end of the first one already. But don't worry, we'll keep doing what we do best, which is talking about the things that, well, of course, affect us here in the borderland, but also very much beyond today. Free for All Friday is what we call it and what we do and what we will keep doing. Coming back from this break, again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Police and fire on scene for a crash. Injury sustained reported on Dyer northbound to Gateway South. Take an alternate route you could use northbound 54 Patriot Freeway. Watch for fire crew stage for a medical emergency Mason Street at Kirby. And also a medical reported on Mason Street at Remcon Circle. There you could use Red Road or Sunland Park as an alternate route to avoid delays. Let's look at your latest El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has everything you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Right now, Staples comp books and number 2 pencils are just 50 cents, and 2 pocket paper folders are just 25 cents each. In-store only offer ends 8/27, limit 30. Don't send your kids back to school. Send them forward at Staples.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with a new way to enjoy our beautiful planet. Summer's rising temperatures often coincide with rising outdoor water use. Save water and money in the yard this year by sweeping driveways, sidewalks, and steps rather than hosing them off. Don't forget to check for leaks at your spigot connection and tighten as necessary. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Many of us take the fact that the NBA is an international phenomenon for granted, but that hasn't always been the case. We'll bring you the story of how the NBA became, well, the NBA. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. A lot of ways to interact with the show. I mean, Friday is a banner day for that, considering we're taking those comments and calls throughout the entirety of the program. But in any case, you can get us over on the social medias. A lot of people are chiming in right now. Kathy Codry, Ian Grimm, John Brazelton, Edgar Ortiz, Louis Pinato, RJ and Kathy Codry, Flaco Menace, Monica Cervantes. I mean, a lot of Ian Grimm. I feel like I'm repeating, but if you're over there, you know what you're doing, and we'll pop those up here as we have. Might not always get a chance to say them on air, but I try to pop them up. What people are talking about anyway, more often than not. But of course, the phone line 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Lot of conversations going on with this, and some of the points being made here. The Edgar Ortiz saying very much focus on the taxes, as a lot of people end up being. These taxes are the cost of living in this great country. Just wish it was abused less. John Brazelton responding to that, saying it's not the taxes, it's the spending at all levels that's killing America. Politicians only know how to spend money. I mean, yeah, in short, there's some finer points to be made there, but yeah, it's definitely a problem here. Also, some other analysis of past and potential future administrations and what may or may not be running, who may or may not be. I know there's some polling on that, but I think that any trying to forecast what will happen in 2024, even from this standpoint, even from the obvious of people who ran previously or are in office currently running again, I'm not even going to take that as guaranteed right now. I think we're going to be on a very strange road even before November, much less 2 years from then. But in any case, let's get at least one more call before we hit that next hour here right now. We do have Daniel on the east side with us right now. Daniel, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Listen, I just wanted to make a couple of observations. One is that this morning I was on the 375 loop, and there was two guys. It's like a road rage type thing. They were cutting off each other and all kinds of things. And I remember a guy from my church telling me, he's a lawyer here, and he was telling me, I'm not sure if it was from the latter part of 2021 to, I think it was May, April, somewhere in there, that we had about 7 killings, road rage killings in El Paso.
I don't think I've heard that exact figure, but
I have no.
Yeah,
I've tried to, I've tried to look it up, and I couldn't find it. So I'm leery about that. But I have noticed that, I don't know if you guys have, that we have more people in El Paso, but I do know that if you get to a light, as soon as it turns green, man, if you're not on it, you get everybody honking at you.
Oh yeah,
and we didn't have that before. I remember when the cops used to get on I-10 or on the border highway, because we didn't have the 375 loop all the way yet.
No, of course.
But I remember when nobody would pass the cops, they were afraid to. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
And now, I mean, they better get out of the way because they'll get ran over. I guess it's, I get older or people have changed, but that's something to look at. We keep hearing about killings here or killings there. It's terrible. So I do know that he had told me that there's a lot of what do they call that when they have problems at home and their husband and wife fight and all this, and
domestic violence or distracted driving, maybe.
So
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Domestic violence or distracted driving.
I don't know if that's changed,
No.
but I just wish somebody would find out really what the crime statistics are for El Paso in the last couple of years. I'm sure they've changed.
I know that there have been some adjustments happening there, and tell you what, it's something that we've been talking about. Actually, might have some more interviews coming up for that on you, but I think that'll just put a pin in it, and we'll definitely have to talk more about that as we can get, because there are some stats nationally, anyway, comparison that we were working on for you. Might have to bring that up and hurry that up for next week for you all instead then.
Okay, I think that would be wonderful. I think we're all interested in that, especially now with, people not having the respect they used to have for law enforcement and so forth. And those things become cultural. The kids start looking at it, what they're doing in LA or New York or whatever. And, kids copy that. I remember when I was a kid. The other thing I wanted to talk to you was about climate change. I think that we all agree that climate obviously is changing, and we do have a problem. But this is what no one talks about, not Republicans and not Democrats, and that is the fact that during the Paris Accords, Trump did. We left because they had a deal where the Europeans and the United States, we were going to go to zero emissions, right?
Right.
But China and India and some of the Pacific Rim countries were allowed to stay, 10, 15 years ahead, and they with the pollution the way it was. And as a matter of fact, their pollution was going to grow 50% more. And last year, China, I think, if I'm correct, they told their coal people, that they wanted 300 million tons of coal more than normal. And not only that, the Chinese are buying coal from the Russians. And the reason they're doing that is because they're building electrical plants.
I mean, okay, in short, yes, that has been happening, but also another component of it has been the price of fuel, the price of natural gas. Some of their plants have been going otherwise natural gas plants. They've been relying on older tech in order to continue supporting it. Otherwise, honestly, they've been looking at shortages as well. So, I mean, there's a point to what you're saying there, but tell you what, we got to take that next break right now to hit the top of the hour here. So again, you're tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Coming back to the top of the hour and the top of the hour news break, we'll definitely get back more into these issues. So thank you for the point in the call. We'll get more calls from the line. That number to dial, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the I-10 eastbound, a multi-vehicle crash is blocking the right lane before the Hunter Viscount exit, and there's a backup to Airway, about a 5-minute delay right now. I-10 westbound at Geronimo, an accident reported. Left shoulder is blocked. Got a crash downtown, Campbell Street at Main. Use Kansas or Texas Avenue to get around that. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
News on the hour and the half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690. News on the hour KTSM. And the half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Kentucky's governor says the death toll from flooding is now up to 16. The mayor of Hindman, Tracy Neese, described the damage.
I've lived here for 56 years, and this is the largest water I've ever seen.
Governor Andy Beshear added the death toll is going to grow. Homes were washed away, and floodwaters also took out roads and bridges. Beshear has called it an ongoing natural disaster. The chair of the House Oversight Committee is urging HHS to declare monkeypox a public health emergency. New York Democrat Carolyn Maloney wrote a letter to Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra calling on the department to issue the declaration so it can access emergency funds. We're in big trouble as a country. That's what former President Trump said on the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show. Trump also expressed concerns about a potential World War III. He cited the Russia-Ukraine war and issues with Taiwan. CAL FIRE says 106 homes have been destroyed by the Oak Fire burning west of Yosemite National Park. The week-old fire has burned through more than 19,000 acres and is 45% contained as of this morning. Another 640 structures are still considered threatened. Some of George Floyd's family members and activists aren't satisfied with the recent sentences of 3 former Minneapolis police officers.
They say the penalties handed down recently were too small. Town, who held back bystanders while Derek Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck, received a 3.5-year sentence. Ex-officer J. Alexander King got a 3-year prison term, and Thomas Lane, who held Floyd's feet, received 2.5 years. I'm Lisa Taylor.
With July wrapping up, we're heading into the peak of hurricane season. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says August, September, and October are the most active months. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. 9/11 victims' families are gathering to protest this weekend's live golf tournament at former President Trump's New Jersey club. Liz Warner reports.
9/11 victims' families expressing grief and outrage about the tournament's Saudi backers.
Cannot believe that we have to be here 21 years later, speaking out against a government that is trying to sports wash or whitewash their atrocities all over the world.
Both Trump and players also coming under fire for taking blood money from a sponsor of terrorism, with 15 of 19 9/11 hijackers coming from Saudi Arabia. That nation also faces international condemnation for the brutal murder of a Washington Post journalist.
2 men accused in the murder of Memphis rapper Young Dolph were in court today. Authorities say Justin Johnson and Cornelia Smith are both suspects in the deadly shooting and remain in jail on unrelated charges. In court, Smith didn't receive bond. Johnson will be back in court next week as he attempts to be moved to a correctional facility. Suspended Los Angeles City Councilman Mark Ridley Thomas is suing the city for money he believes he's owed. Phil Hewlett has the details.
Ridley Thomas's colleagues decided to suspend him from the council following his indictment on federal corruption charges last October. City Controller Ron Galperin then decided to also suspend his pay and benefits. Ridley Thomas's lawsuit says the move was unauthorized, unlawful, and politicized. The suspended councilman wants a court order deeming the decision unlawful.
Martin Scorsese is set to direct a new project with Leonardo DiCaprio in the lead role. The Wager will release on Apple TV and is an adaptation of an upcoming nonfiction book by David Gran. This comes as DiCaprio and Scorsese are working on the upcoming film Killers of the Flower Moon, which is expected to release sometime next year. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Bills. That's bills. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
Dell Technologies provides growing businesses with tools to do incredible things because we believe there's an innovator in all of us. For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel V Pro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Hey El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We make car buying fun, fast, and easy, and our goal is to ensure everyone gets the lowest price possible with exceptional trade-in values.
At Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat, no one pays over MSRP on every new car, truck, and SUV in stock. Plus, save big on every certified pre-owned vehicle. For a limited time, get 0% APR for 60 months on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third row seating. Get up to $8,000 $1,000 off select new Ram trucks or super low 2.9% APR for 72 months. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make This the Summer event at Selland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Selland Park Drive or online at SellandParkDodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. Zero APR is $1,667 and 2.9% APR is $1,515 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined. Excludes Hellcat, SRT, and TRX models.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We do a lot of things here on the program, but one of the things I think we do best, if I may say so myself, is getting into the issues that affect us here in the borderland and the issues concerning to you all, particularly on that latter set. You know, we're doing that today. Free for All Friday is what we call it, meaning that we are taking those comments and calls throughout both hours of the programs. Hour one done, hour two on the way here, and we already got those phone lines filled up right now. But if you're wanting to squeeze in over on there, again, the trick is, I mean, as much as the trick can be anyway, so if someone hangs up, you can try then. But in any case, we make it clear when and how you can dial in. Again, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. If I was a little bit too much on the mic there as we answer one of those previous calls, as Sean Gardner might be letting us know, appreciate the note there. But I mean, there's nothing there, full transparency, nothing we're saying after the breaks that we wouldn't want to say on air, just making sure we know who's on the line, essentially, because that's what we do. If you call in the middle of the segment, you might get popped up live, but just stay on your toes and stay on the line if you're there. Otherwise, again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Some more of the comments coming in here. Kathy Kodry saying China and India, some of the worst polluters, because that's definitely, I mean, it's just a simple factor. And why the idea of total green energy is, again, not one I'm totally opposed to, but saying that we'll do it and solve everything, there's a little bit of issue there. Also some other comments coming in. Edgar Ortiz saying, as much as I would like Trump to run and win again, I think the country will go with a younger up and coming conservative leaders doing a great job right now. I will say that this trend of septuagenarian and octogenarian leadership of this country, not that I have anything against anyone in that age range, but it's consistently happening, and the rather total lockstep we have. I mean, you look at the leaders on either side of the aisle in the national legislature, and those are the heads right now. We're talking about the White House, we're talking about the House and the Senate. So, I wouldn't be totally opposed to seeing a little bit more fresh blood, so to speak, here. But we get a lot more comments coming in on those points if you want to make them over there. But again, the number to call if you want to chime in that way, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Right now on the line, we do have Marco over in Central on the line with us right now. Marco, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
Doing right there. What's on your mind today?
Oof. Well, there's a lot always to talk about.
Of course.
I want to kind of keep focusing on the First Amendment.
Okay.
From my last conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have people that come to the restaurant, and we have real in-depth conversations. Some of the people that come to visit and have good conversations. There's a local gentleman, James McGee, brilliant older gentleman, an artist, philanthropist in some ways. He's made some structures out in New Mexico that are very interesting. But besides that, the reason that there's so many things to be concerned about, but here's one of my major concerning things today. And this isn't really on the First Amendment, but it's just funny.
Mm-hmm.
So the UN merged. I'm not sure if you know about this because it's so underspoken about. But now, if you go to the UN, it's the UN WEO, World Economic, or WEF, World Economic Forum. They're now a joint venture. It's no longer just the UN. So you have both of them putting out a statement, and this is a real statement here. Are you ready for this? They said they want to ban cars outright. Nobody should own a vehicle. They want to ban vehicle ownership. And I'm like, that's fine. There's an argument to be made for that, but it's the way they propose these things. They want it in your face. It's not a discussion to be had of how many people die per year in vehicle accidents. That's a valid argument to be had. Absolutely. But they view it as not that. See, here's the problem. They keep talking about global climate change, global warming, whatever it is. I've made it very clear on your show that I don't think they understand hydrocarbons the way they work. I honestly don't, because what they're asking people is to, and it goes with everything that the left does, because the left is a global movement. It's a pan movement. It's an organized idea of governance, the way they want to rule over you. And so they all speak in unison. Like when all the countries decided, hey, we got to be in lockstep because of the Great Reset. It's not coincidence. It's just that's how they view the world. They have a set agenda, and unless you view what they're talking about, you don't get a glimpse of what they're saying. This is why, like I always say to you, we're going to eat bugs. And I'm sure people, they'll text you. I'm sure they talk to you, and they're like, man, I can't believe there's people that are saying they're going to eat bugs. Well, yeah, you're going to eat bugs, because in Canada, they're already feeding bugs to kids. This last week alone, you had 3 articles, one in Vox, one in the New York Times, and I think one in the Washington Post, of why cannibalism is all right. I'm not the one stating these opinions. I'm just reading from what they say. And so you'll say, and then here's the prime example I gave you the other day. Oh, no, we're not in a recession. You're mistaken.
Right.
Let's get to the First Amendment part here. It's not, it's protecting the things that you find offensive. This is exactly why defending the neo-Nazis at Skokie was important. Most people will probably sit here and be like, oh my God, did he just say that was important? Yeah, because if we don't defend their speech and we just allow the system to rail over them for the sake of, we don't want to offend anybody, you never get to understand why their views are disgusting. You only can assume that their views are disgusting. Here's another thing, another person, prime example of the First Amendment, Alex Jones. Everybody, and it's not mainstream radio and just people. There's a book he's letting out, The Great Reset, and there's a movie that's coming out about Alex Jones. But here's the sad thing about Alex Jones, and it concerns you too, Andrew.
Yeah.
What they did to him was default him. See, the court asked him to provide evidence. He provided the evidence, and the judge said, I don't believe you. I think, this is what the judge said, I think there's still more. And so she defaulted him. So when you hear on the news, Alex Jones has been defaulted or has been accused, well, no, the judge defaulted him. It's not that it went to a hearing of his peers. He never went to court. The judge just said, screw you, you're defaulted. And so now the group that's suing Alex Jones is the same group that sued Remington. And so it's important because if you can silence the guy on the corner screaming at you that the world's going to end, and he's the only one that's been telling everybody, hey, you're going to eat bugs. Hey, there's such thing as the World Economic Forum. Hey, guys, there's a thing called the New World Order. And you ridicule the man that's many years later, you're like, wow, that dude wasn't actually that crazy. And so you wonder, why is it so important to stifle your ability to speak? as nonsensical, as stupid, as ridiculous it can be. We have to allow those voices to be heard, because without those voices being heard, we will never understand. This is exactly why powerful entities in this world can tell you, we don't want you to drive your car because we're not going to give you energy for it. What are you going to do about it?
I mean,
I'll leave you with that.
I mean, yeah, the point about the First Amendment is allowing, pretty much, very broadly. Sure, there are a couple of categories that have been deemed by, subsequent Supreme Court cases, essentially, fire in a crowded theater, fighting words, things immediately and imminently designed to cause or foment harm. Those are the outliers of an otherwise very permissive system. And two major thoughts come to mind when you talk about that. And it also doesn't help that, at least in my mind, there literally was a guy shouting on the corner. I don't know if he was there today, not too far from our offices, Mesa and Executive, literally a guy with a bullhorn shouting. I'm never at the light long enough to hear what he is, but I've heard by friends who had to stop in that area that it's very much something about Jesus is about the only thing they came away with, because as an effective communication style, wouldn't necessarily say it is, but the point that he is able to, and more importantly, not able to be stopped from doing that, is a critical part, not even just of how we do a show like this, but also of our society. Because yes, the ability to say things, even things people may disagree with, not even just something that we espouse on this program as a very much focused thing, and why I am incredibly committed to it, even as some may say to the detriment, because the alternative to that system has twofold nightmares essentially associated with it. Either A, those that are not fitting a narrative or fitting, whatever the powers may be, et cetera, not to get too far down the rabbit hole with that. But if they're not going with that, the idea that they could be silenced and not allowed to speak is concerning, but also just as a general concept of governance. If the idea of, because I know there are some out there, even those some that listen and comment on this show, saying that no, this certain people shouldn't be allowed to say certain things, we're over it. And yeah, we have certain ways we go about it. Repeat and just bad radio we deal with. But the idea of there being that there's the power to say, no, this person is not allowed to do that. Think about what those mechanisms require. The ability to even do that kind of thing, saying, no, this speech is removed. I know that there's also a further debate about, technology and internet companies, et cetera. But just speaking governmentally here for a moment, the ability to do that and determine what would or would not be allowed to be said would be something that would be essentially down to political control. And as much as someone may say, yes, I love the idea of that, making it so that the people I don't like can't say that, political control, if anything, has not been a totally stable thing. It has shifted between parties. So if the idea of then the party that you disagree with, that you don't like, that you're opposed to the ideas, suddenly being in charge of that ability, of the ability to determine, no, this speech is not permissible and we will ban it or throw you in jail, etc. If that level of control or the idea of that being possible terrifies you as it does me, that is one of the more cemented ideas I've ever had, that is why that level should not exist. It cannot be allowed to do so because of the amount of harm it would absolutely do to our culture, to our society, to our government, would be, as much as we talk about very serious things, almost unparalleled. So that's why, yes, as much as I may laugh a little bit about Alex Jones, because some of the things, I think he's made a bit of his own bed, but the way it has all largely been treated as, and therefore he shouldn't be allowed to, that's where I'm like, okay, and then that is in its own right way too far. So there are a lot of very important things on here. So I appreciate the point in the call. Definitely do.
You're welcome, brother. Thank you. And everybody in El Paso, have a beautiful weekend.
You as well there. So tell you what, we are overdue for that next break right now. We've had some people patiently on the line as we were getting into a very serious subject here, but we will get further into it here as there are more comments coming in as well. So if you're on the line, stay there. If you want to get on the line, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the I-10 eastbound, in an earlier multi-vehicle accident still blocking the right lane, the far right lane, And there's a backup all the way back to Trowbridge with 8-minute delays. North Loop Drive, westbound at North Carolina, an injury accident there. Take Hunter instead. And westbound I-10 from Schuster to Executive Center Boulevard, that right lane is closed for road work. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Red Pilled America is the storytelling show that is saving our culture. This week we answer the question, do illegal aliens commit less crime than American citizens? Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention, like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See, we didn't have to use crash or siren sounds after all. Speeding catches up with you. Brought to you by NHTSA.
Staples has everything for school at great prices. So this year you won't go back to school. You'll be ready to move forward and master 5th grade math.
I can't do this. It's impossible.
Not you, Dad, your daughter. Staples will help her move forward.
Right.
Right now, Staples comp books and number 2 pencils are just 50 cents each. Plus, 2 pocket paper folders are only 25 cents each. Everything on your list at amazing prices. Staples, we're not going back. We're going forward to school. Ends 8/27 in store only, limit 30.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Maybe we get a little bit deep in the weeds sometimes, but in any case, what we do on Friday, it's very important to me, but also a whole lot, even some other suggestion on the idea of debating here. Victor Navarrete suggesting, love to see a segment on the show where we have 2 guests debate, opposing views. Imagine people actually defining the merits of their positions. We've had a lot of calls and a lot of focus on the idea of having actual debate back and forth go on. I am not entirely sure radio is the best format for it, only because we can't, well, maybe I could turn off mics. I'm not opposed to it. There are some technical challenges, I will say, we keep running into, but the idea of having it on there and really delving into it, because even with 2 hours daily as we are now, it's never quite enough time to really, we get a little bit deeper into some of the issues than, say, your average, TV news story. Not that I'm picking on them, but seriously, there's a lot more to do here. So maybe that's a decent idea for a podcast. I'll file that one away for later. And at least someone suggesting, ever so slightly, we should take another call here. Okay, if you're going to get me on a subject, there's a couple easy ways to do it. Talking about the First Amendment free speech, the way it is handled, and the role of government in regulating any of this. Let's just say, yeah, you're going to get me going off on that one. Another easy one is probably guns and gun rights, but longtime listeners of the show will have that be no surprise to them. So let's get back to those phone lines. Again, if you want to leave the comments over there, as you can, as we have Victor Navarrete, Kathy Codry, Louis Pinato, Ted Kors, RJ, and more tuning in, chiming in, also dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate, including Ed Clore, Robert Haynes, Ion Graham, Robbie Flores, Matt Olson, Monica Cervantes, Flaco Jimenez, Ida Beza Gardner, and Louis Pinato. A lot of people chiming in if you want to keep doing so, social media. But again, that phone number, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Frank and Messia on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right. Right out of the box here, I got to say something. I saw that Donnie Dotard on YouTube giving an interview at his Bedminster Golf Club. Oh, my God. What the hell's the matter with him? He's biodegrading faster than a skink in hot sun down here in Messia. He looks like the Pillsbury Doughboy that's been drugged through the streets, the Skid Row streets of Los Angeles. Mike, he's disintegrating right in front of our face. Unbelievable. I've never seen anything like that. Now, I just missed my main point I want to talk about, but I heard Marco and I heard you. It's about the First Amendment stuff. Now, let me say something. Okay, great. First Amendment, say what you want. That's the way it works here in our country. But wait a minute here, because we're focusing on the nonsense of this Alex Jones nut job. Well, wait a minute. If you want to let Alex Jones say what he wants to say, he's got that right. Well, wait a minute. How about a radio guy that wants to go and expound on, say, pedophilia? How about somebody that wants to have a radio program and espousing on how to murder people? Now, you still got that right to do that in this country. But where the problem is, the average person would say you're a nut job, not you. I'm talking the universal you.
Sure.
I say this person's a nut job, and off the rails they go. They're gone. They're finished. The problem is the same situation is with this Alex Jones nut job. I mean, he's going down. He's going to be broke, more broke than a stick, right? But the point is, when you got 5 or so million people following nut jobs, there is something seriously wrong, Andrew and everybody else out there, with the First Amendment, and that's what I want to say.
Okay, what I'll say further on that is that, yes, there are some, as with any right out there are some restrictions. There is no unlimited right. Your right does not go straight through, say, as it comes to the right of freedom of movement, through someone's nose. Obviously, restrictions, and of course, there are to there. I mentioned those ideas, fire in a crowded theater, inciting fighting words. Like, there are specific restrictions on it here. And for the most part, there used to be, let's just call them market responses to other issues, because sure, I mean, even at any previous point in time, since the invention of the medium, there could have been someone coming on and espousing the topics you're talking about on radio, but people would have either maybe not supported that, or at least no financial support, so it would have failed. But also people may be saying that this is awful and complaining directly to the provider of that service, etc. Things like that can and definitely would have happened and continue to do so. Now, of course, the modern challenge we have is that the barrier to entry into some of these mediums is completely different. The democratization of the medium and the accessibility of it has definitely changed a lot of things, and maybe not always for the better, particularly when it means that anyone can put out literally anything, regardless of truth or not. But also, I mean, libel and slander also do still exist, which is why, I mean, sure, as much as the whole default judgment, as Marco was referring to, being entered against Alex Jones, may be seen as unjust, he also did not show up to contest it. I mean, it was done in place of there being no legal action responding to it, or very much an obfuscation even thereof. Yes, I've been reading up on this case. I will read up on a lot of things, but more specifically, the idea of there being, well, actual, defamation, I mean, among other things, something clearly supported by the former president, because he has announced that he is going to be pursuing, and has previously vociferously pursued, defamation, libel, and slander cases. So clearly there are recourses there, which is why, yes, Alex Jones as a person and the random stuff that I make it perfectly clear, I do not agree with him on like most things, but his ability to do so is very important to me, as it is one of the ways I, do profess and make my own living here, among other things, but also think it's an important concept even beyond my benefiting from it or not. But to that point then about restricting it therein, I mean, sure, yeah, Alex Jones is a particular lightning rod case, but the general principles at play there are still incredibly important to be allowed as part of the open society that we still espouse to have, and I very much hope that we still do.
Well, I hear everything you say, and you made a point about trying to have a political debate on a radio program such as you have. It's just not enough time for the back and forth. But I listen to you because you are a normal person. I consider myself a normal person. There is no way, Jose, that I would ever listen to this nut job Alex Jones, because he's abnormal, and I believe it or not, and lots of folks down here in the beautiful town of Basia's downtown, the land of enchantment here, also believe I am not an abnormal person. And there's where the difference is as far as I'm concerned. You want to yak and yak and yak about the nuttiest stuff in the world. God bless you, United States of America. But when you start putting stuff out like that and bring to your fold the additional other nut jobs around, now you got a problem. 1 or 2 people, okay, they're nut jobs. But when you can start talking 2, 3, 4 billion people all believing this stuff, we got a serious problem. That's all I want to say about that.
All right, well, fair enough. Well, thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, so I think we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. I know we've had some people that are very much on the line and being patient with that, and we'll keep talking about it as we do, and more comments coming in as well, including calling me clueless about some of the parts of this. Fair enough, you're entitled to your opinion on that, but we'll keep talking about it as we do. Free for All Friday is what we're doing, delving more into the issues important to you all, and of course that affect us here in the borderland. After this break with more Talk El Paso, that number to call again, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with your KFOX 14 News Update. Border Patrol agents in the El Paso sector are making life-saving rescues daily as the number of migrants crossing over illegally soars. On Wednesday, agents were trying to conduct a traffic stop, which quickly turned into chaos. The SUV they were trying to stop crashed on McNutt in Santa Teresa with 13 people inside. 1 was killed, and the majority of them were migrants. And a $1.1 billion lottery prize will be on the line tonight in the Mega Millions game. The giant jackpot is the nation's 3rd largest prize and is a result of 29 consecutive drawings without anyone winning. The $1.1 billion prize is for players who get their winnings through an annuity paid annually over 29 years, but nearly all winners take the cash option, which in this case would be $648.2 million. I'm Erica Castillo with your KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On the I-10 eastbound before the Hunter Viscount exit, that earlier crash is cleared. All lanes are back open from that multi-vehicle crash there. The backup to Airway has got less than 5-minute delays. Heavy traffic on Memorial Highway, Loop 375 northbound between the 10 Gateway and Vista del Sol. Memorial Highway southbound at Montwood has a stalled vehicle that's blocking the left shoulder. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. The weekend is finally here, and it looks like we may get a tiny little break. What that basically means is we've got a slight decrease in our rain chances, but on the flip side, that brings us a slight increase in our temperatures, and we could see the return of near triple-digit heat. But rain chances continue every day still and will continue into next week. Log on to kfoxtv.com for the latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Audible. This summer, fire up your imagination with Audible. Listen to comedies, thrillers, mysteries, and more. It's everything you want in audio entertainment, all in the Audible app. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Many of us take the fact that the NBA is an international phenomenon for granted, but that hasn't always been the case. We'll bring you the story of how the NBA became, well, the NBA. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Developed and used by cultures in forested areas, drums served as an early form of communication. Due to the highly ambiguous nature of these rhythms, misinterpretations often occur, resulting in violence. Thankfully, when we bang the drum now, we're a bit more civilized.
Can you hear me now?
A bit.
We have to hit them hard for this.
Beat out your frustrations on our drum.
Do not stop banging that drum.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv. Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments, a lot of commentary, and a lot of calls that we'll keep getting to here, both having come in and already coming on here on the show. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And if you want to get over on the social media, again, those comments going throughout, well, all of it through both hours of the show here as we do that free-for-all Friday thing. Already coming around the bend on the bottom of the second hour, but we'll squeeze in what we can before the end of the show here. So one story that's actually coming up here, I was told that, I guess, anytime there is a major prosecution going on, but understanding that this might be something that a name, given the age and importance of it, have heard it come up a couple of times here, but at least two men now charged, federally indicted in a wire fraud scheme, grand jury in El Paso, now indicting Russell Allen Vanderberg and Scott Anthony Stewart of Las Vegas and El Paso in their respective roles here, Stewart of Las Vegas, I should say, including their, well, ever since from February 2015 through October 2017, according to the release from the FBI and the Department of Justice in the Western District of Texas, indicted on defrauding large sums of money and each facing 20 years in prison on the fraud counts if convicted. So one of the big things happening coming out this week here, we'll probably talk more about in the coming weeks. But in any case, let's go back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a few topics I want to talk about today. Yesterday, we spoke about why we could not trust the FBI. And today we got another example of it. A top FBI agent by the name of Timothy Timbault is apparently telling his underlings, if you want to say it that way, that they are to categorize some of the cases that they have, even though they do not meet the criteria for domestic extremism, that they are to mark the files with domestic extremism. How do we know this? Whistleblowers are coming out and stating that he is specifically giving instructions. And, you know, we've heard the president, we've heard Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray keep iterating that domestic terrorism is the greatest threat to our country right now. And this Timothy Timbault is the one who covered Hunter Biden's laptop, the truth about the laptop. And above all things, this guy was a spokesman for election integrity. And now we find out he's telling his agents to lie on the files. So we can't trust anything coming out of the FBI and the DOJ. And every day we get more and more information. And thank goodness for the whistleblowers who are putting their careers on the line to come out and let the American people know. Second, I was going to discuss, there was a second grade teacher who a couple of weeks ago stated that her whole second grade students had changed their pronouns. And she was so proud of it. And I'm thinking, second graders? My granddaughter's going to be a second grader. I don't know that she knows the difference between a noun and a pronoun, a verb and an adverb, or an adjective. But this teacher said her whole second grade class changed their pronouns. That is dangerous. These teachers need to be monitored. And that brings me to Conathio. And this is for El Pasoans. I don't know how many are informed about the situation going on at Conutino High School, but there are books that if they're not categorized pornographic, they're right up there. And I don't know that this can be something, a subject that one individual can keep off the agenda and keep the other board members from voting to take those books off the shelves. And what is dangerous here is that students have access, middle school and high school students have access to these books. All they have to do is tell the librarian that they speak at a higher grade level. And if you're reading at a specific grade level, you have access to these horrific graphic books without your parents' permission. So my question to the librarians, to the school is, who and how is it being verified that the student reads at a specific age level, that he or she is entitled to read these books without their parents' permission? The next question I have for the librarian in the schools are, who measures this child's comprehension and what their little minds can absorb and understand to let them have access to these books based on the fact that they read at a higher grade level? Those are critical without the parents' permission. And we have Sergio Coronado, who has been asked by one particular trustee, Blanca Trout, to have an emergency meeting to remove these books from the shelves. He refuses to grant her that request. In the meantime, he refuses her to put it on an emergency meeting to get the books off the shelves. In the interim, he refuses to take the books off until the issue is resolved. So you have these trustees, two of them actually, I need to look at my notes here because I wrote who is in favor of keeping these books on the shelves, which is just astonishing. There's Salvador Payan said yes to keep them on the shelves. Tristan Hernandez said yes, keep them on the shelves. Rodriguez Armando said yes. Sergio Coronado said yes. And mind you, he's running against Blanca Trout for county commissioner. And here's an individual who is refusing to put something on the agenda for a vote. Is that how he's going to be conducting himself as a county commissioner? God willing, he doesn't win, but that is his attitude right now. And Mendoza, Patsy Mendoza also voted yes to keep the books on the shelves. So we have these people that we entrust. We have the teachers, the administrators, the librarians that we entrust our children to. Then we vote for the school boards and entrust them to do the right things for our children. And then we hear that this is happening in Canutillo. And I know a few months back, I was up there protesting CRT. We spoke about why CRT was not good in the schools. And now I find out that this is happening. So there's an opportunity. All Sergio has to do is put it as an emergency item, have the meeting, and take a vote. And then we as parents, if we have children in the schools and we have interest in our kids, we go out there, see who actually votes yes to keep these books on the shelves and vote them off. Unless you as a parent want your teachers to make decisions for them on what books they can read at a specific age level, if they're close to pornography or right up there. The issue here is who's going to investigate the school board? Is it the sheriff's office? Are they, do they have oversight over the library, the schools? Do they do the investigation? Or do we go to the Texas Rangers who oversee elected officials? Parents are I'm not going to let go of this, I can assure you. And I hope there are more parents out there that will join me in this issue. My kids are not in school in the El Paso schools anymore, but I'm a grandmother and I'm concerned about our schools. I'm concerned that a second grade teacher would say all her kids change their pronouns. I'm concerned that we have an elected official who refuses to grant an emergency meeting to take a vote on this. what keeps him from a vote? What keeps him from allowing the parents to listen to why these books should be left on the shelf? That's openness. That's being transparent with the students. We deserve that. We pay their salaries.
Yeah.
We pay for the teachers. We pay for the books. Now we demand answers as to why they feel that they can overstep a parent and say that they are not their legal guardians, which we are. And as my child's legal guardians, I have a right to know what books that they are allowing someone to read without my permission. And these books are graphic. They're terrible. And I would suggest every parent go to the library and request a copy so you can see exactly what it is that our kids are allowed to read without your permission. And I know there will be an uproar in El Paso if parents go to these libraries, go to Canadillo and insist on seeing these books and take them off the shelves, because we don't need that in our schools. Our kids' little minds don't need to be corrupted because we have some teachers who are afraid to take these horrific books off the shelves. So El Paso, wake up. Listen to what's happening in Canadillo. Listen to vote for trash in our public libraries made available to our kids without our consent.
Let me just say this, as one of those kids who was at that point in time, so I know the experience I went through, but I couldn't, obviously it's been years since that point of what they determined reading level. I mean, AR tests were a thing back in my day. I don't know if that still is. And the way it was determined was there was a computerized test about, terminology, what you were able to understand at the reading level. And I, at that point in time, scored fairly high. I mean, that's not something meant to be a brag, but just the situation it was, because I was a voracious reader back in my day in school, and still to an extent am, as much as, jobs and other work allow me to be. So let me say this, the balance between parents still being involved, always should be involved, and definitely the things that you're asking for what is known and what is being allowed in votes here. I'm not saying any of that is unreasonable, but the balance there also with the idea of, well, essentially censorship, because let's be honest, at a level, we are talking about that to an extent of what should kids be allowed to read. And yes, there is definitely some objectionable material out there. I mean, there's some out there. I mean, there's tons out there. Let's make no mistake, and particularly in this day and age, the balance between that, as I look towards a future where I may potentially have, young kids involved in the life here, that's one that I am mildly terrified to confront, because gauging between what is necessary for a growing mind, curious mind to know and understand, because there are a lot of things in this world that we may want to protect kids from, but also that they may be forced in their own right to come and confront and to be able to understand on their own. I mean, essentially what it comes down to for me is, how do you both make sure they're not being taken advantage of, but have an understanding of what that even means? I mean, it's a complex, one of the most complex questions I can almost think of in this day and age, and it keeps getting more and more complicated. So I'm not even questioning any of your favor or in some of the other things that are coming up here about the idea of, elections matter and things like that, even as we have some other people very mad at me for other issues involving Alex Jones here in the comments. I mean, it always goes interesting ways here. You're of course entitled to your opinion on that, but anyway, there's one thing I state more than often than not, it's making sure you are informed about and making your own decisions here. So if you're wanting to make your own and saying that I made mine wrong but came to it for my own ways, we're going to continue to have disagreements. Anyway, back to your point, Barbara, and what you're getting at here. I guess the balance is, where should it lie between, I mean, saying that kids that are at a certain grade level and not able to go to bigger books, there's not an easy answer, simply put, but the idea of it not being able to saying, well, you're only a third grader, therefore these are only the books that it was at, just in my circumstance, that would have incredibly stymied me and made me very uninterested in the subject and continued study at that point in time, saying, no, you're only allowed to do these, because I think that's the grade level when I first took that AR test. Again, in this case, no idea if that's still the standard or what is being the way it's being administered these days, but I mean, making sure that young growing minds are able to continue doing their exploration and focusing on the subjects that interest them. About the only reason I think I made it through school is the ability to keep focusing on what interested me in the variety of subjects that it was, but also being protected from things that, because there are horrific things out there and people who would take advantage of it. I don't really know where the balance lies, but what I agree with you on is this, that people need to be involved, that parents do need to be informed and aware. I don't know if it necessarily they should be, well, just being told like, oh, by the way, here's the report of all what your kids are reading. They need to be more involved in their own right, I would say. But when it comes to governance, that's not exactly a satisfactory answer. So to your idea of there needing to be more of a meeting and more of that, I mean, yes, I mean, the idea of pornography just straight up, but also, I mean, the whole know it when you see it kind of standard gets a little bit tricky these days. I'm not in favor at all of any kids being exposed to just straight up lewd and discussing material, but who gets to determine that besides community standards? And so to determine community standards, the community needs to be involved. It's what it simply comes down to, as simply as it can in this complicated, super complicated circumstance. So yes, people getting involved, demanding of their elected officials, and particularly those on the school board, what they're doing is about, I guess, the best answer I can come up with as to what might be a solution, but it's never really going to be solved now, is it there? So tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. I appreciate the point in the call and the seriousness of this issue. We'll squeeze in what we can coming out of this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Parental rights and other issues, yeah, very serious. So getting into that and more as we can out of this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso traffic not looking too bad this afternoon. Got an injury accident, though, on Trans Mountain eastbound at Wrestler Drive. I-10 westbound at Zaragoza. A disabled semi is blocking the right shoulder. Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at Edgemere. A vehicle is blocking the right lane. And South Desert Boulevard is still closed for the weekend from Trans Mountain down to Artcraft for road work. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Are you a safe driver? Are you looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
New on Curiosity Stream, uncover engineering secrets from history's greatest masters. From the mysteries of the first man-made waterways to the building techniques of the early Americas, it's ancient engineering. Plus, 40 tons of trucks speeding down the interstate can be a recipe for disaster. See how today's smarter, new-age big rigs pave the way for safer highways on high-tech trucks. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Research shows listeners don't like it when ads interrupt their music. So to help you remember that Liberty Mutual customizes home insurance, we made this ad optional. If you want to skip this ad, remove your left earphone. Liberty Mutual customizes home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
If you're missing this informative ad, you must love wasting your cash.
It's the easy and smart way to save.
Now it's all been said, so if that earphone was out, put it back in your head.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
With high temperatures on the rise, El Paso Electric would like to remind their customers that EPE is ready for the summer. They have additional crews and resources available to restore power as quickly and safely as possible in case of an outage. During the summer, increased demand, overloaded equipment, and thunderstorms can cause outages. Rest assured that EPE dedicated power restoration team and repair crews are on call 24/7, ready to handle any issue anywhere. For more info and tips, visit epelectric.com.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. We've covered quite a lot of ground here today. And of course, we'll keep doing that every Monday through Friday as we do, squeezing in at least another call or two here before the end of the show. Just want to tell you a little bit about what's coming up for you, of course, here, because we do have some subjects, including some more interviews on voting, elections, current events going on in our area that we are working on for you all. But be sure to tune into the El Paso History Radio Show, airing tomorrow, 10 to noon here on News Radio 690 KTSM. We'll be talking with the Frontera Land Alliance about their current advocacy, outreach, education efforts, the ability to be out in the community, and how you can enjoy their facilities, plus the ongoing efforts for the preservation of Casino Range and the history there. So stay tuned for that as well. And a lot more comments coming in here, and a lot of commentary, more than I called it. We're never going to be able to get all of them here, even in 2 hours, but we got time for at least one more call here. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us. We got about a minute.
Yes, thank you. Immigration. Today, the mayor of D.C. requested assistance from the federal government vis-a-vis the National Guard.
Yep, we talked a little bit about that yesterday because of, among other things, the busing happening of those being captured and released here in Texas, something that Governor Greg Abbott ordered.
Yes, well, be interesting if these immigrants get bused to Martha's Vineyard or places in Delaware, or much closer here like Mesilla Park, New Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt I'd see that into New Mexico, but it's a possibility, I do suppose.
And one last thing, guess what? Mayorkas just announced that they're going to complete portions of the wall that Trump started in the area of Yuma, Arizona.
Yes, and some of that being mentioned in our comments as well. Again, we squeeze in a lot what we can here on the show. We always end up running out of time a little bit here. So, all right, appreciate your mentioning of those points here. I'm sure we'll get more into that here in the coming week as well.
Very well. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You as well there. So unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there for today. I know that there is more to get on here. We've had even more calls coming in here, and we've tried the best we can, but unfortunately, we'll just have to try again next week, as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. here on the show here. Flock of Man is asking, Pepe's tomorrow? Yes, as this is a tradition on the History Show, I'll be there right after the broadcast airs. So in the meantime, everyone stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll keep delving into these and more issues. There's a whole lot more, so have a great weekend, y'all. We'll see y'all next week.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso traffic not looking too bad this afternoon. Got an injury accident, though, on Trans Mountain eastbound at Wrestler Drive. I-10 westbound at Zaragoza. A disabled semi is blocking the right shoulder. Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at Edgemere. A vehicle is blocking the right lane. And South Desert Boulevard is still closed for the weekend from Trans Mountain down to Artcraft for road work. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We make car buying fun, fast, and easy, and our goal is to ensure everyone gets the lowest price possible with exceptional trade-in values.
At Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, no one pays over MSRP on every new car, truck, and SUV in stock. Plus, save big on every certified pre-owned vehicle. For a limited time, get 0% APR for 60 months on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third row seating. Get up to $8,000 off select new Ram trucks or super low 2.9% APR for 72 months. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make This the Summer event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus CTNL. 0 APR is $1,667 and 2.9% APR is $1,515 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined. Excludes Hellcat, SRT, and TRX models.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
If you see something, why do you